And welcome back. Here we are with week three of our outdoor recap series for 2024. We had a pretty big weekend and we had some eye popping discoveries. And so let's just get right into it. And the eye popping discoveries are the meets that were outside of the main relay meets. We were expecting to see big performances from the Texas relays, the Florida relays, and the Raleigh relays. And while those meets did provide us with some, great performances, it was the meets outside of that that actually kind of caught our attention. You had the Battle of the Bayou at LSU, which included a bunch of schools that would have in split. Once a group would have been at the Florida relays and a group would have been at the Texas relays, and neither of those, schools that went to the Battle of the Bayou went to those meets, and those times kind of showed. And then you had the Stanford Invitational, which had all the great distance athletes there putting up eye popping, marks and performances. And so the question I have for the listening audience and for those who follow the sport as feverishly as I do, was this a help or a hindrance to the sport? I mean, we have media attention focused on the Texas relays and the Florida relays heavily. The Texas relays being on the Longhorn Network, sponsored by ESPN, and then the SEC Network covering the Florida relays. And then there's not a lot of attention on the Battle of the Bayou, not a lot of attention on Stanford Invite, and so we're not able to really showcase the sport in a major level. And I said this in the preview, the live stream, that why can't these programs, those who make these decisions, come together and recognize in order for the sport to grow, perhaps the best method isn't to constantly have these meets competing against each other. Why not have someone have, their own meet, their weekend, and a bunch of schools show up there? Because I thought the Battle of the Bayou really kind of took away a lot of the steam from the Texas relays and the Florida relays, and I thought the Stanford invite took a lot from the Raleigh relays. However, the Stanford Invitational has been going on, for a very long time, but I've never seen it kind of clash with this weekend. And so that's the question I have for you, the listening audience. What do you think about having all these meets this weekend and seeing the times vary depending on the meet? And so we'll get things started with, our four leg format. The first leg will be sprints and hurdles. And in this section, there were a total of 11 new number one marks. 11, yes, really big weekend. We'll get things started with Favor Ash of Auburn, running a 999, and that is win legal. It was not win dated, and that is our first big time performance in the 100 of the year. We have our first guy under 10 seconds. He is right now the fastest in the world. And make no mistake, Favor Ash of Nigeria will probably be something we see in the Olympics in Paris. That's a great start for his season. And we know that Auburn has a terrific group of sprinters. They have the number one time in the nation in the 4x1, and I think he's probably the big clog of that engine. And that was actually the time ran at the Florida relays. So, although they didn't have as many big performances as they've had in the past, a sub 10 performance, win legal, was a huge knock for them. And then we go to the Battle of the Bayou. We have Christopher Morales Williams of Georgia, and Georgia normally would have been at the Florida relays. Christopher Morales Williams, 45-19. Still not at that 44-4 that he set indoors, but I think we'll see him continue to lower his time as the season progresses. Jaqueline Scott of Texas A&M in the high hurdles, another Battle of the Bayou performer, 13-34. His transition from Texas A&M Kingsville to actual Texas A&M is another positive transfer decision. I think for a lot of those that are getting in the transfer portal, for some of them, it gives them new life. And I've seen it actually help more than hurt. I think he's an example of it helping. And then we move to the 400 hurdles. Chris Robinson predicted it on the preview video that he was probably going to be one of the main guys. He is a defending champion in the 400 hurdles, and he kind of looked like it at the Battle of the Bayou. 49-13. Almost under 49 seconds already, and we just hit April 1st. So What a talented young man this is, and I'm curious to see what he does. He was a part of Alabama's 4x4, which became the number one team, 3 minutes point 77, almost a 2:59 4x4 in March, early April. Alabama's got a great 4x4, and with this being outdoor season, you can't really hide. On the women's side, Brianna Liston made her debut, and although it was a wind aided, it was a 10.87 in the 100, barely wind aided. And I think that's the type of time she can run, wind aided or not. I think we're going to see her run a 10.8. And I said that a couple weeks ago when we were reviewing or recapping the indoor championships. And here she is now already at 10.87. Whew, what a talented young lady. And I hope that she can get better and better in that 200 because that 23-second time didn't really make me go wow, but she's going to lower that. Jamesha Ford in the 200 at the Florida Relays 22:37. Number one time in the nation, number one time, not the number one time in the world, that's Gabby Thomas, but the number one time in the NCAA, the super freshman. She now has the number one time in the 200 and 400. So we'll see what she does with the 400. Again, I do think she has a low 50 point in her. Grace Stark of Florida in the 100 hurdles at the Florida Relays 12:70. She's the first sub 12.8 runner in the 100 hurdles this year. That does include Nia Ali. So 12:70 for Grace Stark as her debut. We're going to be hearing that name all outdoor season. So let's just get comfortable with her there now. And then the 400 hurdles, also at the Florida Relay, she had Chastity Pickett of Campbell. I spoke of this in the preview video. I thought it was great of her, a real talent at a smaller university, choosing to stay at that smaller university and not necessarily transfer to the big school. And she ran a 55.7 in the 400 hurdles, our first sub 56 400 hurdler of the year. I think she's kind of in the driver's seat. And she is one of the big names to watch, but that is an eye popping time to debut your season. Then the relay events, Tennessee became our first sub 43-second 4x1, running a 42.98 at the Battle of the Bayou. And then Arkansas ran 3:27.05 at the Texas Relay. So, two pretty solid performances. I'm actually kind of shocked we don't have that many teams under 43 seconds in the 4x1 because I'm seeing a lot of these teams with great depth in the 100, but that just shows that some of them have get to get their legs under them, get used to getting that baton around in whatever order they may have. Or some coaches may need to change the relay order, so it remains to be seen. Our second leg will jump right into the distance events because we had some really eye-popping times. On the men's side, you had Sam Whitmarsh of Texas A&M running a 144 at the Battle of the Bayou, 144.46. Great time in the 800, and that means we need to start giving him some consideration as a challenger of a title. Again, it's early. We don't want to make big predictions, but a 144 is not a time you can ignore. That is a huge eye popping time that says, I am here. Get to know me. Charlie O'Donovan of Villanova running a 3:39.65. Jesse Hamlin of Butler in the 5K running 13:31. Evan Jenkins of Washington, their super freshman. I remember when this was announced because I kind of thought he was going to Oregon or Northern Arizona. He chose Washington, and clearly he chose wisely. Leads the nation in the 10K, 28 minutes 4.58. Huge eye popping time for a freshman. I think he's one of our young talented guys that we got to keep an eye on. Because there's no big favorite in the 10K, but in the distance events, all eyes poking to Nico Young, Kai Robinson, and Parker Wolf. So I guess we'll say they are the big names that we're considering. But is there going to be someone who solely focuses on the 10K? I wonder if that'll be this young man. What a talent he is. 28.04, that's pretty good as a freshman. Abdul Hakim Abu Zahir in the 3000 steeplechase for Eastern Kentucky, 8:37.52. Still an open event, but he is a name that has been mentioned on my blog before. So this is the second time for him. I wonder if he really is going to be the favorite. We'll see. On the women's side, Harvard having another runner, Victoria Bosson, winning the 800 at 2 minutes 92 seconds. Huge performance for Harvard as they have Maya Ramsden, and a host of other talented athletes in the throws, and in the jump. Harvard's got a really solid program. Time to start paying attention to some of these Ivy League schools with a closer lens. Shannon Flockhart of Providence in the 1500 408.84, beating her teammate, and she really put out a great performance. Providence is really kind of becoming one of those big time programs. They've always been great at producing distance runners, but I feel like as of recently they're getting more and more notoriety. They're getting better and better at recruiting the top tier athletes. And this is the school that has done that, but it's like they just reached another level, and I'm curious to see where they go with that. Maddie Elmore of Oregon in the 5K, 15:15:79. That's a big time for her. And she is one of the names that we're considering as a potential challenger to Parker Valby, and that's a great time, and that's a sign that we chose well. Hilda Olamomoy of Alabama in the 10K, 32 minutes, 22 seconds, point 20. And then Jeanette Shraft of Iowa State in the steeplechase, 9:48:20. Olamomoy, we're still waiting to see who's going to be that favorite in the 10K, or Parker Valley steps up and runs that. But that's a great time for Olamumwe. And she's a name, and she's going to be competitive in whatever distance event she runs. This may be her event, so it remains to be seen. And Shraft, we're still waiting to see who's going to be our star in the 3,000 steeplechase. It may be her, but let's give her credit for the time that she ran, 9:48:20. But we won't make any major predictions in that event because there's still more season to come. But a really good time for her. Third leg we'll move to, which will be our jumps, and a name that has been mentioned here before, but very briefly, and that's Caleb Snowden of Arkansas Pine Bluff in the high jump. 7 feet 5 or 2.26 meters. Waiting to see what Romaine Beckford does this outdoor season. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons why it's such a slow start is her expectations that he's going to try to make Jamaica a national team in the high jump. Very talented young man. But give Caleb Snowden his credit. That's a great mark. And in the pole vault, I was happy to see this because I've mentioned his name. He was initially my guy going into the indoor championships and no hided, and that's Hunter Garrettson of Akron. Um, in the pole vault, winning the Texas relays, 19 feet 1.5 inches or 5.83 meters. That was such a great performance. We have a 19-foot jumper. I believe there are two now. That's a great mark for Garrettson, and that's again his outdoor season start is going very well. Malcolm Clemens of Florida in the long jump at the Florida Relay, 26 feet 3 inches or 8 meters even. And I'm really, really believing he's going to definitely improve upon that. It's like I don't know, I didn't think he really matched his indoor championship performance, but it's the first outdoor meet for him. He'll get better as the season goes on. Sean Dixon Bodie of Florida in the triple jump, 54.8 3/4, 60.68 meters. That was a jump that I was like, okay, now that's what I was expecting from him. I think he's going to get better as long as he keeps remaining healthy. He's going to join Russell Robinson. He's going to join Jeremiah Davis of Florida State. He's going to be in that hunt for a title. And it was good to see his name this weekend at the top of a list after battling through injuries. On the women's side, you have Elena Kulichenko of Georgia in the high jump. This is her second time being mentioned here outdoors. 6 feet 4, 1.93 meters. Big mark. Great mark. 6'4" for Kulichenko. She is not messing around and she is getting after it. Huge mark for the Georgia athlete. In the pole vault, Hannah Mole, no 15-foot jump, but in the pole vault, but she's got 14.9, 4.50 meters, and she's again seems to be unfazed by being a freshman because she's just been focusing on winning, and that's working for her. Ruta Lasmain of Texas Tech in the triple jump, 45 feet 6.5 inches, wind aided, 13.88 meters, a great mark for her. Clearly, she can do better. We've saw her do better, but that's a great way to start the outdoor season, winning the Texas relays. Then in our anchor leg, we'll look at the throws and the multi events. And on the men's side, the big throw came from Francois Prinsloo of South Alabama, 211 feet 4 inches or 64.41 meters uh, in the, I believe, hammer throw. Great mark for him. Great way to, excuse me, that's not the hammer, it was the javelin. Great mark for him. Great way to start the season. Oh, no, not javelin. I'm way off. Excuse me, the discus. So that means we're now up to six guys in the NCAA Division One. Make sure I make that clear who are over 200 feet. Six from South Alabama, LSU, USC, Arizona State, Miami, and Texas Tech. So no one conference dominating in the discus, just a really solid group of guys from all over. But kudos to Francois Prinsloo for being our new leader in the wheelhouse of the discus. And then I'm all tongue tied. Leo Nussbauer in the decathlon from Texas, getting things started, 8,708 points. And I felt he left points out there. I watched that competition and thought, as great as he's performing, he clearly could do so much better. And for him to score 8,708 points, I'm going, he's going to break that record. He's going to break that national record again. Can we see an 8,900 guy? My goodness. This young man is extremely talented. And every time he's brought up here, he continues to excel. Um, I just was amazed because I just kept looking. He can improve in every competition. He looked great in the 100. I'll give him that. But I still think he can run faster than that and in the 400. I thought, man, he left points out there. So we'll see what he does later on this season. And I'm pretty sure it'll be special. On the women's side, you have Jelani Davis of Ole Miss. What a shocker. Her name is mentioned here yet again. In the shot put, 60 feet, 10 inches, 18.54 meters. I think, again, it's just going to be Jelani versus Maya Lesnar. They're in Alita Van Dalen. So this is going to end up being a great mark at the end of the season or whenever one of them peaks. It'll be glorious. Alita Van Dalen of Florida in the discus, 202 feet 11 inches, 61.84 meters. That's a big mark for her winning on her home field, the Florida Relays. And we know she didn't finish the indoor season the way she wanted, but here she is outdoors, one of her better events, the discus throw. And then the hammer throw, you have Elizabeth Rudd Runersdotter in the hammer, 230 feet 9 inches, 70.33 meters from Texas State. Big mark for her, and this sort of solidifies that she was no fluke at the beginning of the season. Janelle Rogers of Ball State in the heptathlon certainly surprised me because I could have sworn I thought it was going to be Christine Blazovica to be the top performer of the weekend, especially at the Texas Relays, but it wasn't. It was Janelle Rogers who beat Blazovica on her home field, 5,825 points. She had great marks throughout the competition. Certainly performed at a high level, really every chance she could. Um, that was big for her. 5,825 points. She was second in the 100 hurdles. She was also in the high jump. She finished third. In the shot put, she was the winner, a 46-foot throw. In the 200, she was runner up. In the long jump, she was runner up. In the javelin, she finished, let's see, she finished 13th, so that was her weakest event. And then in the 800, although she did run a 220, which, that's a clear indication that's not her best event, but she was still eighth overall. And so that's a huge win for her. All those second place and that third place, and although she in the end had, two not so great performances overall, still 5,825 points over Christine Blazovica. That's a huge notice. She didn't mess around, and she clearly earned that top mark. And she will be a name that I think we'll mention. I saw that 200 time, and I thought, oh yeah, this is a talented athlete. She can improve that 800 time, and maybe she'll be able to improve in the javelin. Remains to be seen. All right. I think the other story that I wanted to kind of bring up is, are we going to see a step back in our athlete performances week over week because it is Olympic year and because many are trying to make their Olympic teams? Will we have weeks where the performances just don't match? Meaning we have a bunch of pretty good performances but no number ones. And I think that is going to happen. Again, the outdoor season is much longer than the indoor. There's not as much scrutiny and intensity. The season starts in the middle of March and goes into the end of June or the middle of June. Now, that's if you're a championship level performer, because we know regionals is at the end of May. That's still a pretty long time. That's still 2.5 months. So I think that we may see some athletes not necessarily um, trying to compete early. They'll wait till late April, mid April. But we have some eye popping meets. And I bring this up because it was just a shock to not see the consistency of top marks at the Texas relays and at the Florida relays. They had some, but normally they're dominating the conversation. And this weekend they just didn't. The Battle of the Bayou was a really great meet at LSU. I mean, we had a lot of great competition. And although they had to compete against, some professionals, they still did very, very well. We're going to listen 10-8-7, Mackenzie Long 10-8-9, Thelma Davies 10-9-8. And although these are win aided, they're barely win aided, which means they can actually probably run close to those times. You had Aaliyah Butler of Georgia in the 400, 51-22. And again, we talked about Sam Whitmarsh in the 800, 144. Then the 1500, Michigan had four guys go sub 344. They went 1, 2, 3, 4. Nick Foster, Trent McFarland, Riley Flemington, and Henry Johnson. I know that probably made Coach Sullivan very happy to see that after Nick Foster goes on, McFarland, Flemington, and Johnson will be able to carry the torch. That's great for them. That shows really solid depth. I'm very curious to see what they do with the pin relays. I'll be there. And I'm wondering if they're going to have a DMR, a 4x8, and a 4x mile. And they're probably going to be in it in every competition. And then when we look at, the 5K, you had a freshman from Alabama, Ethan Lemons, um, run 14:07:88. So I'm very curious to see your opinions. What do you think about having a meet that's not a big relay meet, but it's a coordinated team battle? And instead of these schools going to the Florida relays or the Texas relays like they normally would have, they decided to compete together. Do you think this is the way forward? If so, please share your thoughts. So, as always, thank you so much for your listening ear. Please like, subscribe, share, provide your feedback, whether positive or negative. And again, the comment section is open, so your thoughts are welcomed. And thanks so much for listening. And I will catch you next go around. We may do a preview video for this upcoming weekend. So please just keep your eyes on the channel for more information. Thanks again, guys.